Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to start the service off with the singing of a song to get us into the spirit of Shabbat. And the song is Adonai Oz, a very short song with the translation, May Adonai grant strength to our people. May Adonai bless our people with peace. It's on page 642 of your Siddur, if you would like to join in the singing. Adonai Oz le'amo yitain, Adonai Oz le'amo yitain, Adonai Oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo, Adonai yivarech et amo, vashalom, Adonai yivarech et amo, vashalom, vashalom, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo, yivarech et amo, vashalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm Rabbi Susan Abramson, coming to you from the sanctuary of Temple Shalom Emeth in Burlington, Massachusetts. And that was our Cantorial Soloist Ben Silver, who led us in that lovely tune to begin our service this evening. And I just wanted to say that this is a very auspicious moment for us, because we are maybe a little bit transitioning from the past over 1 year of our doing services, which were pre-recorded, to maybe approaching the beginning of the approach to something more normal. And we have 3 members of the community sitting in the congregation: Phyllis Burlow, who's going to be lighting the Shabbat candles for us in a moment, who's our temple matriarch, and Ellen and Richard Finkelman. Ellen is the chair of our religious and ritual committee. She's going to be doing the motzi, and Richard's going to be doing the kiddush. So it's wonderful to have actual people sitting in our actual sanctuary facing us, as opposed to us speaking only into the camera. And what goes along with this moment of transition is actually the Torah portion for this week. This week is a double Torah portion. Acharei Mot is the first one, and Kadoshim is the second one. And usually when you see them written, there's a dash between them. Acharei Mot is the phrase meaning after the death, and it talks about what happened after the death of Aaron's 2 sons, Nadab and Abihu, and how the Israelites had to go on from there. Talks about all kinds of sacrifices, guilt offerings, and other kinds of sacrifices. And then the second Torah portion is Kadoshim, which means holy, or holies, and it contains the most important commandment in the entire Torah, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. And so when we think about what happened this week with the trial and the conviction of Derek Chauvin in the murder of George Floyd, and how we think it's Acharei Mot, after the death of George Floyd, we had this conviction. And then Kadoshim, we have the saying in our minds, love your neighbor as yourself. And the rabbis tell us that the word Acharei is from the same root as the word achariotiot, which means accountability. And so we think about how we've just experienced a certain amount of accountability for among the first times in our country with somebody who murdered a person of color who was actually convicted for the crime. And then we have the idea of Kadoshim, again, like love your neighbor as yourself. And so in a sense, we're part of that hyphen between those two concepts, between the concept of accountability and the concept of love. And what we really need to do is to move closer and closer towards that concept of love, because I really believe that if there was more love in the world, if there was more love between people, then nothing like what happened to George Floyd would have happened, and we would just accept each other more and be truly more accountable to each other. So there's a lot to think about in terms of those two concepts in both of those two Torah portions together. So with that idea, we're going to continue to celebrate Shabbat, and we're going to continue with the lighting of the Shabbat candles, symbolic of the fact that there's a special light in our lives on this holy occasion. So I'd like to invite Phyllis Burlow, our temple matriarch, to come on up and light the candles for us this evening, which you may follow along on pages 120 and 121.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Please join me as we sing the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen, 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 amen.
And now we're going to continue our service as we welcome the Shabbat bride, called Lecha Dodi, on page 138.
We will be singing the first, second, fifth, and last verse. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, v'shemu tiferet v'lit ilah. Lecha דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת מקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת מקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת מקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה קבוצה עולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת מקבלה. פני שבת מקבלה.
And now we continue on page 146 as we rise for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai, to whom praise is due, now and forever.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai hamavorach. Leolam va'ed.
Page 148. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono Borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi layla umavdil bein yom uvein layla Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Page 150.
Ahavat olam bit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu lemadita אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 152, 153, we continue with the Shema, the watchword of our Jewish faith. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. We continue with the Via Hafta on page 154.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha uv'kol nafshecha uv'kol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantaham levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'vetecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shachpecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot ben einecha uchtavtaham al mezuzot betecha uv'isharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God, Adonai Elohechem Emet. Now we're going to continue on page 158 with the singing of Mi Chamocha, the song the Israelites sang when they crossed the Red Sea to freedom from Pharaoh's grip.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ויאמרו, זה אלי ענו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Continue with a prayer asking God to grant us the ability to lie down in peace and to be our shelter from life's storms. The Hashkivenu on page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shamreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shamreinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzeteinu Shalom ushalom me'ata v'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
Page 161. Let there be peace and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. And we continue with Vishamru, the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time, on page 162.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise for the tefillah on page 164, excuse me.
Anananananana Adonai, Anananananana Svatai Tiftach, Anananananana Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Anananananana Adonai, Ananananana Svatai Tiftach, Ananananana Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ananananana Adonai, Ananananana Svatai Tiftach, Ananananana Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ananananana Adonai, Ananananana Svatai Tiftach, Ananananana Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Please turn to page 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, Umevig Ula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'Yahava. Melech Ozer, Umoshia Umagein, Baruch atah Adonai, Magein, Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Page 168. Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Ata, Rav Lehoshia, Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Sohamech Nohoflim Verofech Oholim, Umatihir Asurim, Umkahayehim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Givurot, Umidoho Mehelach, Melech Memihit, Umchahayehi, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lehachayot ha'akol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Page 170. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalaluhu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'kadosh.
Please be seated. We read together at the top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Now continue with a song for peace, Shalom Rav, on page 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Page 179. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praise are you, Adonai, the Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We now continue with the Misha Beirach Get Well prayer on page 371. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. This evening we think in particular of Judy Wasserman, who was at home recovering from having had a kidney transplant. She's finally home, we're happy to say. And at this time you may say the names of anybody you would like us to keep in our hearts and our minds as we prepare to recite this Get Well prayer.
Barbara Boyle.
We also think of everybody in our country who is suffering in the wake of the Chauvin verdict and all the racial tension which has been brought up in our hearts. And we also think of all of those in our country who are suffering from COVID and who are in the process of recovering. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for all of our health to be restored and all of our strength to be revived, May God swiftly send to all of us a complete renewal of body and spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And at this moment, not only do we think of those who are in need of support, whose support we send out to them, we also think about all the things that we have to be grateful for. And with each passing week, it seems like that we can find more and more reasons to be grateful and to express our gratitude to God. Even though it's really cold and windy out today, we're starting to move further into the spring, and more sunny, warm days are ahead of us. We did have that positive verdict in our country this week, and we're shining a light on more and more of a light on all the issues which our country is facing, and hopefully moving our country in a better direction. So we're grateful for that. We're grateful. I know a lot of people who got their second vaccines this week, and I know a lot of people, more and more members of our congregation who are fully vaccinated. So we're grateful to that, not only for the individuals, but for our community in general. I'm grateful that we're here back in person a little bit. We're moving in the direction of getting back to what we normally were. So there are so many reasons for us to be grateful, and for that we thank God for enabling us to reach this moment in time as we sing together the Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
We pause for a moment of silent prayer.
And now please turn in your prayer books to page 180, and please join with me in the singing of Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
And now we can continue with the concluding prayers in our service. We begin with the Aleinu on page 586. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated.
And please turn to page 588 and join me at the top of the page. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. Page 191, 591. But yeah. Oh, you want to do that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. This is a version of Bayom Hahu by Jeff Klepper. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. echad u'shemo echad, echad u'shemo echad.
The introduction to the Kaddish prayer may be found on page 599. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We recall Paul Kramer, who died during this past month, and we add to his name the names of those whose yahrzeits or anniversary of whose deaths occur this week. Bernice Brown, Simon Vilner, Kate Spector, Lenore Waldron, Cheryl Currier, Claire D. Fowler. We also think of George Floyd on this Shabbat. We also think of the over 570,000 Americans who have died due to the COVID disease and the millions around the world who have died as well. And at this time, if there are names of others you'd like us to keep in our hearts and our minds as we prepare to recite the Kaddish prayer, you may say their names aloud at this moment. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing. We rise in body or spirit to recite the Kaddish prayer on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei rabbah, b'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'yizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach l'olam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to our country and all the world, as we say together, Amen. Please be seated. This is usually the time for announcements, so I just wanted to announce that I would like you guys to, anybody who wants to give us your feedback about how this service went as compared to the other services we've been doing during the year, so we know the best way to move forward, and it just feels great to be back up here. So I'm hoping that maybe towards the end of June we'll be able to at least have an outdoor service here at Temple Shalom Emeth, but we don't want to lose our audience who are not local, so we're going to continue to find ways to make sure that everybody has access to our Shabbat services. And thank you to Ben, and thank you to our congregants out there. And I'd now like to invite Richard Fickelman to come on up and lead us in the Kiddush on page 122 and 123. Come over here, please. Please rise.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God has done. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen. L'chaim. Okay.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher litziat mitzrayim, Kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'yahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mikadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Now we're going to continue with the motzi. I'd like to invite up Ellen Finkelman to lead us in the motzi. And we've been missing Ellen's challah all year, so she made a challah special for this occasion, right? Okay. I couldn't eat them anyway, since I'm gluten-free, but I admire them from afar. Come over here, please.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi melech, well,
Try it again. Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, motzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Please be seated, and on this auspicious occasion, we're going to conclude our service with one of my very special favorite songs, which Ben will tell us about.
This is another version of that wonderful prayer, and short prayer, Bayom Hahu. And this is a version with extra English words written by Barry Kanarek, a song that we enjoy doing here. Bayom
Rabbi Rocket Power theme song.
And so that's right. It's a theme song of many Rabbi Rocket Power productions. And so maybe you'll recognize it from that. Though the time be far, I know that come it will, when all nations shall each other bless, peace the earth shall fill. God shall reign over the earth on that day. God shall be one. His name it shall be one. Bayom Hahu, yeah, Adonai Echad Ushmo Echad. Bayom Hahu, yeah, Adonai Echad. And on the dawn of peace we'll smash the spear of war. And everyone beneath their vine and fig be afraid no more. God shall reign over the earth on that day. God shall be one. Your name it shall be past that peace is what we'll find. And we'll join our hands with everyone across the borderline. God shall reign over the earth on that day. God shall be one. Your name shall be one. Bayo, ahu, yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Bayo, ahu, yeh Adonai echad.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Enjoy your Shabbat. And I forgot to add one last thing that we need to be grateful for, that Ben was able to wear a different tie finally at the Shabbat service. He's been wearing, poor Ben has had to wear the same exact outfit the entire year, so congratulations.